So today we are looking at a submitted material that is a listicle presenting 10 facts about the scenic charm, coastal history, and visual identity of Portsmouth and Southsea. And jumping right into the feedback here, anchoring these disparate facts with a stronger unifying narrative thread would really elevate the piece from a simple trivia list to a compelling historical journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the foundational material here points to a city with this incredibly vibrant, highly layered past.
Right.
The writer captured some fantastic locations, but the delivery mechanism is, well, it's fundamentally hindering the reader's experience.
Completely agree. The current 1 to 10 list format, it lacks a cohesive organizing principle, which ends up creating this profound sense of thematic whiplash.
Oh, thematic whiplash is the perfect way to put it, because we are simply counting upward, right? So the reader is just bounced haphazardly across wildly different eras and tones and, physical geographies.
Right, with zero connective tissue between them.
Exactly. Like, in Fact 2, the text explores the modern, very sleek landscape architecture of Centenary Place. But then immediately after, in Fact 3, the reader is just dragged backward into the heavy military history of Southsea Common.
Yeah, and then,
without even a breath, Fact 4 plunges them underground into an Edwardian theater, only to, launch them out into the ocean in Fact 5 to look at the Solon forts.
It's exhausting. I mean, the cognitive load required to process those transitions is just massive. You're basically asking the reader to reconstruct the entire physical environment, the historical era, and the emotional stakes every single time you start a new paragraph.
Yes, it feels remarkably similar to walking into a grand museum where the curator has just placed the exhibits in a completely random order.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Like you might have this breathtaking Roman statue sitting right next to a 1990s desktop computer.
Right, followed by a medieval tapestry.
Exactly. The artifacts themselves are inherently valuable and, undeniably fascinating, but the lack of curation leaves the visitor completely disoriented.
Because they're spending all their mental energy just trying to figure out where they are rather than actually absorbing what they are looking at.
Precisely. So the suggestion here is to abandon the arbitrary numerical list entirely and group these facts into distinct thematic buckets that tell a larger story about how the city has evolved.
Right, just dismantle that entire 1 to 10 scaffolding.
Yeah, because when you group things by theme, you create a guided psychological path for the reader. They don't have to reset their brain with every paragraph because you are keeping them within the same conceptual room of your museum until that specific story is fully told.
So let's build a concrete example of how to actually execute the structural shift. Like, the writer could create a new section titled something like, From Fortifications to Fun.
Oh, I like that.
Right? And under this unified heading, you group Fact 3, which explains how Southsea Common was deliberately kept clear of trees for cannon fire, with Fact 5, which details the massive Solent forts built out in the water.
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
And then you weave Fact 7, which introduces that beautifully manicured rose garden built directly inside the sunken earthworks of Lump's Fort.
Right. And you could conclude that specific section with Fact 10.
Exactly. Outlining how the old heavy stone hot walls have been converted into vibrant artist studios.
That is such a powerful fix. Grouping those specific points together transforms what was just a series of isolated trivia points into this powerful, overarching narrative about urban adaptation.
Yeah, you're demonstrating how Portsmouth systematically transformed a hardened coastal naval perimeter into an open-air public lounge and creative space.
The reader can actually see the heavy granite of a military defense line giving way to flower beds and painters. You are no longer just delivering data at that point.
Right, you are charting the evolution of the city's very soul.
Yes, and a similar thematic grouping could totally be applied to the infrastructure facts too. Like Fact 1 detailing the expansive 4-mile esplanade, and Fact 2 discussing the contemporary design of Centennial Place.
They naturally belong together.
Right, under a heading focused on something like modern coastal engineering. You group the entries that share narrative DNA.
But let me push back on this for a second. If we restructure this thematically and just abandon the listicle format entirely, do we risk losing the breezy, fast-paced rhythm that a top 10 list inherently provides?
That's a fair question.
Because, people click on lists because they promise an easy, digestible pace. Does a thematic structure risk making this material read, a bit too heavily?
I would argue that a thematic structure actually generates a much stronger, more sustainable momentum than a countdown.
Really?
Yeah, because a numbered list creates artificial pacing. It relies entirely on the reader's desire to reach number 1. And that often leads to reader fatigue right around, number 6 or 7, where they just begin skimming to finish the countdown.
Oh, that is so true. I do that all the time.
Right? But when you group things by theme, you replace that arbitrary momentum with narrative anticipation. The reader stays engaged because each fact actively builds upon the foundation of the previous one.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Like when you explain the canons of South Sea Common, the reader is primed and eager to hear about the forts out in the water because the context has already been established. The pacing actually feels faster because the friction of context switching has been removed.
That makes total sense. Now, moving on to our second main point for this critique. Maintaining rigorous historical accuracy and a balanced tone is crucial when blending centuries-old military events with modern pop culture.
Oh, absolutely. This is a big one.
Because once the exhibits are placed in the correct thematic rooms of our museum, the plaques explaining those exhibits must be flawless.
Yes. If the curation sets a path, the tonal authority dictates whether the reader actually trusts the guide leading them down that path.
Exactly. And Fact 6 contains a glaring chronological error that, quite frankly, severely undermines that trust.
It really does.